Well, a very warm welcome to you. Oleksii Sobolev is First Deputy Minister of Economy in the government of Ukraine. I hope you can hear me. I don't know if you can see our room, but you're very welcome at this government roundtable in Athens. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting.
Thank you. So I wanted to begin by asking about the state of the economy in Ukraine. We're now more than 3 years into a full-scale invasion from Russia. You have a wartime economy. Obviously, that brings enormous challenges, but it also means that after this time, you've had quite a period to adjust to this reality and to get used to the kinds of adjustments that it brings. So how is the Ukraine economy doing 3.5 years into the full-scale war?
Thank you for this question. So firstly, I'd like to say that on the behalf of the Ministry of Economy, we're very glad to participate in this event. And the economy, of course, is challenging. Since the Russian aggression, we faced unprecedented economic shocks, millions of citizens displaced. There's a big community of Ukrainian refugees in Greece. Some are willing to return as soon as the fighting stops. There is vast destruction of infrastructure, shutdown of thousands enterprises, disruptions of logistics and business flows. But then in the macro terms, you can see that the economy has contracted in 2022 by almost 29%. But after that, we're on the growth path. In 23, Ukrainian's economy grew by 5.5%, and in 24, around 3%, and we expect the same growth this year. And also, while discussing Ukraine's economy, I think it's important to understand that this is Russian war of aggression is kinetic war, but it's also economic one, right? And there's a famous economic piece, a piece from The Economist last year, that it seems that Ukraine has been winning the economic war just because our economy is doing better than Russia, and just the first quarter of 2025, the numbers are out, and if you can look at the quarter-on-quarter GDP comparison, Russian economy dropped by 0.6%. This is the first time since 2022. For the Russian economy, and Ukrainian economy grew by around 1%, and we expect the growth to be increasing this year. So we feel that in this context, the Ukrainian economy is doing well. And how it happened? Of course, with the help of our partners. So we had massive international financial assistance, totaling more than $135 billion since 2022, including a lot of transfers to the budget to support the social spending, the pension payments, and critical state institutions, but also through macroeconomic stabilization policies by the government, by the National Bank, to keep economy and situation stable. And I think you've read a lot of articles that describing very unusual how the macroeconomy in Ukraine, the economy is actually working sometimes like pretty normal during this biggest war and biggest aggression since the Second World War in Europe. And also strong performance of wartime economic sectors. So, of course, defense plays a huge role in Ukraine now, but also construction, that rebuilding the damage that Russia is doing, but also sectors like food and pharmaceuticals and a lot of others. And the final note here, I would say that in the macro sphere, there's a huge change in the role of the government. So in 2024, public consumption amounted to 38% of GDP, and you compare that to pre-invasion level of just 17. So this is the macro adjustment that the Ukrainian economy had to face, but so far it is doing well. Thank you.
So I'd like you to elaborate on one or 2 points there. First of all, the challenge, just from the labor perspective, of operating this growing economy in a situation of war, where you're also struggling to have recruits for the Ukrainian army. How much of a constraint is that for you?
So if you ask Ukrainian businesses, then they would name labor issue as probably like the second or the third in the issues. So behind war and sometimes rivaling the energy shortages because of the Russian attacks on the energy infrastructure. So it is a significant issue. However, at the same time, it allows people to have better wages. So last year, wages grew, real wages for people grew double digits because of the situation. But it also, if you look at the GDP per capita, Ukraine right now is at the highest point in its independent history. So we're surpassed $6,000 per capita, which has never attained before, meaning that people work. They work in more productive jobs just because of the scarcity, and it allows the companies to innovate and to be more productive. So this is the opposite side of this labor shortage.
And it leads into my next question, which is on the innovation front. And we, among others, have written a lot about the innovation of the Ukrainian economy, particularly in the military section. We've written about drones, for example, which has been a phenomenal story. I'm curious to know, as Europe more broadly ramps up its defense spending, and particularly its investment into military technology, what role do you see Ukraine playing in that? Is there a big opportunity there, perhaps, for Ukraine to be part of that rearmament of the broader NATO and European armies?
Yeah, definitely. So I see in the program you will have Mario Draghi here, right? So his famous Draghi report for EU competitiveness going forward lists like 3 main blocks of issues that EU needs to tackle. It's defense, it's energy, and it's innovation. And we think that Ukraine could be a big player in helping Europe to solve all 3, because we also think of ourselves as a part of European family. So in defense, we're definitely a provider right now of security to the whole European continent, and having the most powerful army in Europe. And we think that this is going forward. And it's not just a kind of the matter of fact, but also since this year, a huge security programs of rebuilding Europeans' defense sector have been launched, and there is a lot of cooperation going on already. So, for example, one example is this Safe Europe program of 150 billion, and our ministries of defense and strategic industries are in constant dialogue with our neighboring countries to establish joint ventures with Ukrainian companies here in Ukraine, producing weapons and drones for Ukraine and also for Europe. And that's kind of spreading innovation and spreading know-how that we right now understand about the modern warfare. So it also kind of helps to prop up Ukrainian industrial sector. And I think Ukraine would be a country where kind of defense sector and the civilian sector would be very much merged, not just inside the dual use, but generally across the economy, just because of the know-how and the industry and the great need for security in Europe.
So one other critical area I wanted to make sure we covered in the short time that we have available is the minerals sector. And I know you were personally closely involved in the negotiation of the minerals deal with the United States. So I think it would be interesting for our audience to hear a little bit about that negotiation, where you've ended up and what it means for Ukraine and perhaps the future of minerals more broadly in the European context.
In the European context, we have a great program called Ukraine Facility, which is a 50 billion program of reforms and economic development done with EU. And we signed this at the start of the last year. And underneath this thing called the Ukraine Plan that lists for the next 4 years the reforms and also the sectors that we need to develop together with Europe. So there are 6 sectors, and one of those is critical minerals, and I think the sectors are still relevant, and we're gonna go one by one in developing them. It's the energy, the agriculture, logistics, IT, industry, and critical minerals. So in this whole framework, we have this critical minerals agreement with US. We think it's very beneficial. It started complicated, I would say, and you have read all in the press. And I think that the whole process was very, very transparent, and it was very intense. So some of the journalists, couple of months ago, asked us, "Wow, it took quite some time to get this agreement done." I asked, how many big funds could be done within 3 months. So in the private sector, it is just impossible. And this is what we needed to do. Once we figured out the strategic interest of Ukraine and United States, the negotiations became easier. And we were always coming from the most practical side, negotiating on, okay, how do we actually do it? So it is the agreement that we're discussing right now is actually feasible and practical. And that's how we ended with the fund, that is a 50-50 joint venture between United States and Ukraine. It also allows United States to provide military aid and receive contribution like the shares in the fund, increasing their shares. And also the governance is also 50-50, meaning 3 board members from Ukraine and 3 board members from United States. The fund will invest in critical minerals and adjacent infrastructure and hydrocarbon projects in Ukraine. So currently we're working with the United States on estimating the first pilot projects to launch the fund. And we also feel that the fund will be a catalytic investment, meaning that the projects that the fund will invest in, they will have a lot of co-investors from the different IFIs across the world and different private companies. So this is the current state, and we hope to make the fund very practical this year.
So famously, at this White House meeting with President Zelensky, President Trump said, "You don't have the cards." Obviously, that was in the context of the war with Russia. But in the negotiation over the minerals, are you satisfied that you had enough cards to defend Ukraine's interest, that it's not just a one-sided deal that benefits the United States? Are you happy that Ukraine's interests were defended too?
We don't think that this is a one-sided deal, and I think it's the same position that the US takes in it. Why? Because the only strategy for the fund and the only mandate is to invest in Ukraine. So basically, whatever contributions the fund gets both from Ukraine and from the United States could be invested in Ukraine only. And the profits will be split not sooner than within the next 10 years. So the next 10 years is the investment cycle of this fund. And we need macroeconomically a lot of investment in this country. So we think that this is a really good, it created during negotiation, it created this very good vehicle and a sign that you can actually do big deals in Ukraine that work for decades.
Very good. And final question for you, because all these questions are very hard to divorce from what's happening on the battlefield, and we read in recent days that Russia has captured a very important lithium mine in Donetsk. how much of a blow is that, and how vulnerable are other strategic minerals in Ukraine to the Russian offensive?
Well, not much. So this mine has been for quite some time in this zone that is tens of kilometers from the front lines, meaning that it could be reached by modern drone technology. So any kind of economic development is really hard to do there. So for like years probably. And but the majority of Ukrainian critical minerals are in the territories that Ukraine controls. So, we have estimates. There are just maybe 3 big deposits that are right now on the occupied territories, and the rest from the titanium to rare earth to graphite, lithium, manganese, and like iron ore, and all the others, they're in the most central part of Ukraine. And the nuclear uranium mines are closer to the western part. So it's completely safe, and there is a lot of opportunity for development in critical sector that we see right now.
Thank you very much, Ms. That was really interesting, and we wish you well, of course, for the year ahead. Maybe we see you at our next year's conference as well. Thank you for joining us here today. Thank you.